Hello everyone, welcome to the sixth game in the International Championship. This is a three-player game against Pascaltopia and M34NN. Unfortunately, the results kind of came in very early on before this game really got going. I already knew that Vavi was the person that was going to advance. He finished the league with 6 wins at this point, and I think 1/3. So I wasn't as motivated to try and fight for wins anymore, but I certainly wanted to do as best as I could. Just keeping that in mind, though, MM34NN is one of the players who is possibly going to be relegated in this game. The other one who really has a chance of being relegated is Five Trigger. I played against. You've seen a couple games with him as well. And since Mushan is definitely going to be the one who's relegated, only one of those two will be relegated from this league. In any case, let's just jump into the game, looking at the leaders and wonders. You can look starting from the back. The only really big point wonder is Internet here. I would generally say Hollywood as well, but it's very interesting to note that there's no Chaplin or Marlene or Fleming to really support Hollywood. There is kind of Einstein, so maybe you can go into libraries and finish Hollywood. And then there's also a possibility of Empire State being big with an early Gates or a Watt Railroad Murray kind of combination. Otherwise, it's pretty hard to get a lot of points out of fast food chains, United Nations. So really looking at just the Internet here, which is well supported by Pierre and pretty much only Pierre. Einstein does a little bit okay with that. Marie does a little bit okay, but there's no Meyer, who's the other big Internet kind of player. There are a lot of science leaders, Einstein, Jobs, and Gates, with Nobel, Newton, and Darwin kind of leading into that. Like I said, there's Watt and Marie as well. And then there's also Bach, but he doesn't really go into anything. Cook can kind of go into Mandela, but there's no colonization strategy here. There's no Red Cross. There's no Suez going into that. So, and yeah, nothing really much else to note according to the leaders. Not a lot of military actions through age 1 and age 2 leaders, just Catherine and Joan. And then, anyways, let's just get right into it. Pascaltopia takes Engineering Genius. Not 100% sure how I feel about this one. I kind of think Pyramid's just the best pick. Engineering Genius is relatively good to take, but, you know, it's pretty easy to not get one of these wonders here if MM34NN decides to go for Library here, and then I could maybe spite pick and take Coliseum and Urban Growth or Richland. That way, one of the other wonders, either Stonehenge or Hanging Gardens, they're not nearly as good as these three, I believe. Although maybe Coliseum's not as good in three-player games, so maybe he's banking on the fact that we won't take that line. Especially since Pyramid is on one civil action, but I just don't think this Engineering Genius is very good to pick up as first player. I'd much rather take a leader or a wonder out of my first pick, since I'm a little bit behind on civil actions already. Anyways, MF34NN, he takes the library, and I do take the Pyramids and Cleopatra. I could have taken Colosseum, but I took kind of a note of one of Weidenbaum's videos, and he advised that Colosseum is not really as strong in three-player games, and I kind of agree, which is there's a lot of military actions available. There's one strategy and 2 military theories. There's not as much pressure from the other players when you have fewer players in the game. You don't really need as many military actions to help defend. 4 players is more of an arms racy kind of format, where 3 players is a little bit more greedy. So more civil actions definitely kind of a good way to play towards. One note that I do leave is that Hammurabi plus Colosseum is a combination with Engineering Genius. He's not really going to be behind in civil actions at all, so I could have thought about denying that combination, but I'm really happy with Pyramids. I'm really happy with Cleopatra. I think they're both super top tier wonders, wonder leader combination. So I don't really feel like I don't really want to like deny somebody just because I can. I'd much rather just play for the strongest play. So Pascaltopia does take Colosseum and Hammurabi, so he's not really behind in civil actions. Engineering genius really working out well in this regard, able to still build a mine and increase population here. MM34NN takes Sun Tzu. Does normal stuff and then takes Sun Tzu. Should note that Sun Tzu is not as strong in this set. There's no Zhishka, there's no Khan. There is Columbus, but there's no Barbarossa. There's no other colonization leader or colonization strategy that's really present. So I do think Sun Tzu is not really in his best form here. That being said, he's still totally fine to take. Ashoka and Aristotle are not the best leaders, especially until two civil actions. They each take more civil actions to use, so taking them on two civil actions doesn't really seem quite right. It is possible that he could have maybe thought that Ashoka could still come around. It's unlikely, but it's possible, and maybe he could just take some yellow cards instead of taking and electing Sun Tzu here. Like you can leave Frugality or Patriotism in your hand pretty much the whole time, and although they're not great cards, you could definitely use them to combo with Ashoka. Here, just do normal stuff, and then I take the rich land. This way, I did build the lab first. I'm hoping to spike some resources next turn so I can use the rich land and build a stack of pyramids along the way. So yeah, pretty happy with the way that I'm playing with Cleo right now. Pascaltopia starts step. Just kind of using his like very inefficient actions. Not really a lot to take. Irrigation is definitely a good way to increase your production. So nothing else really to take in this row here, and you really don't want to be grabbing cards for 3. M34NN Seeds starts Library and then takes Breakthrough, Bread and Circus. I mean, could have built the lab, but not really. I mean, there's no. I don't really see a reason to not build the lab here, but he does kind of go for this play instead, delaying the second lab. He can finish the library next turn, so he will get the more science that way. But maybe just more science up front is probably better. There's no real library support, so I don't really feel like it's necessary to skip the labs, especially with Einstein jobs and gates. You really kind of want methods. Or, I mean, Einstein does go with libraries, but it is hard to go up into him. This Bread and Circus is a great pickup, though, with Darwin and Pierre in the game. So, seems pretty nice to pick that up for M34NN. So here I seeded Barbarians. I was really hoping for resources to do what I said with the mine and the step, but here I decided to build a step as opposed to building a mine. Next turn, I will have enough resources to do one resource for the wonder, one resource for the mine, so I have enough for that. So just extending Cleopatra as much as I can. And for the remainder of my turn, I just decided to grab Joan and increase population. I could have maybe grabbed the irrigation, but I figured I might as well just grab a pretty solid leader. I'm going to have extra civil actions with pyramids, so extra military actions seems like a really good transition. I could very well also go build some temples with Cleopatra and then go into Bach. The only problem with that, like I said earlier, is that there's no theater support in H3. Pascaltopia Seeds, which is pretty unusual for Hammurabi, but totally okay since he plans to finish in Colosseum this turn. Just grabs rich land. Already has irrigation, frugality, unnecessary, so makes sense. Here M34NN decides to offer me open borders. I do accept it with the thought that if he gets stronger than me, I'll probably just have to, if he gets significantly stronger, I'll probably just have to cancel it, switch to Joan. There's not a ton that he can do with the resources he has available and the civil actions and whatnot. So I'm not expecting like a full legion here, or sorry, a full phalanx here. He has extra food from the event, but grabbing knights, playing it, increasing pop, and then just building a phalanx is possible, but it is a big investment, and I know that there's a possibility for a lot of strength. So instead, M34 goes for 2 warriors and finishes the legion. This is definitely strong enough that I am going to have to respond to it. I did figure this was an issue, but he also had the lab to build. He also had library to finish, so this is kind of a cost to go for this strength. I can't actually defend even if I do cancel this, going for Joan. But there's a very good chance that he won't aggress me with 3 military actions. I could very well have a card here. I've drawn pretty maximally every turn, so it's not unusual, and I could still just get a card here. I could still just finish the. I could still defend if I draw a card here with 3 anyways, so it's a big risk if he goes for that. I did decide to finish the pyramids. I don't know if I completely agree with that in retrospect. I think building a mine would have been pretty useful since I do need extra resources. I might want to finish a phalanx myself, even though I don't have a tactic, or just having more resources coming next turn. So going for the steppe rich land, having 3 resources available, maybe build a knight, would probably be pretty worthwhile. Do take the knight's theology. These do make sense with Joan. Take the reserves as well. Pascaltopia grabs a swordsman for 2 since M34NN is on Legion. Still has the ability to switch, but this is probably a pretty good pickup. Takes alchemy, could combo with Leo or Gutenberg a little bit, and has enough military actions to M34NN, he does go for the aggression against me. So I did draw a defense card, so I can defend. Was a big cost, not a huge amount of payoff. I don't really like this line of thinking, just because if I choose to, it's pretty easy to defend. It's very, very statistically likely that I'm able to defend here. So I'm not a huge fan of him delaying the library and lab so much. But he does go for Gutenberg here. Perhaps thinking about printing presses. He hasn't built a lab yet, so he does grab it with the Gutenberg action. Don't really think printing press is the way to go in this game, so I really think that this sets you up not having enough population, basically. But 3-player is a very greedy format. I'm still really getting used to it, so perhaps maybe printing press is perfectly fine. Here I cede developed territory. I didn't really want to put myself in a position where I could lose the Reign of Terror. I did figure that I have a higher chance of drawing cards since I have 3 military actions. And although I don't really like seeding colonies, I really, really, really wanted more resources. I wanted to be able to use this rich land to go into an iron directly. I can use the reserves for it, but it is a little bit action intensive, so I was really hoping just to pick up some resources here. Yeah. I do grab the swordsman away as well, so M34NN is in the position where he has the Sun Tzu tactic, but no no way to upgrade his warriors. So he's going to put himself in a position where he might be relatively weak. I can still defend against M34NN, so I don't need to get any stronger this turn. I'm pretty happy to go for my resource production since I've been lacking behind that first. Pascaltopia seeds, flips development science, which I think is great for everybody. Goes for Leo. Grabs Code of Laws, upgrades. He's going to have a lot of science income with Leonardo. Really like his position here. Having two out of the 3 upgraded production buildings. And I'm going to have plenty of civil actions starting next turn as well. M34NN seeds, flips Good Harvest. Develops library, goes for Code of Laws. So we're in a position where we all have 5 civil actions. Pascaltopia, M34NN with Code of Laws. I have pyramids, so yep. All of us looking pretty good in that regard. Should note that M34NN has a lot of unhappiness here. I was thinking that there's a pretty low chance of rebellion in general. Pascaltopia did not draw as many as it seems like because he used Hammurabi for a long time. So I'm not really going to play around it until M34NN decides to as well. Yeah. So go for the swordsman. I can copy the phalanx now, so I do. Decided to become the strongest. And then yeah, I did see a strength related event on top, so I really didn't want to seed here. I throw away the vast and a card. Still want the 2 cards for the develops. I think going for vast is a lot more of a gamble in general. And I definitely want the Reign of Terror in the next deck because I think MM34N is going to have a tough time getting stronger than me and Pascaltopia in the meantime. Pascaltopia goes for Code of Laws, also copies the Phalanx, goes for Irrigation, upgrades, increases pop, goes for Bread and Circus. Also another good pickup. We all kind of have our Age 1 happiness solution. Bread and Circus, I think, is the better one in this game, but I have Joan, so Theology makes a lot more sense. And 3 Friends finally builds a library, develops Bread and Circus. Does really go for some Bread and Circus. He really wants to not be the weakest here. So, yeah, I mean, I said that there was a strength event on top last time, so I'm definitely not going to seed into it again. But it is easy for me to be strongest, so don't seed. Go for Theology, pick up a rich land, and grab the Himeji Castle. So I am not going to look like the weakest for a long time. I could not go for the Himeji Castle, maybe grab the rich land, maybe try to build the Great Wall instead, but both Pascaltopia and MM34N don't have a Wonder in Progress, so Great Wall maybe not possible to come around to me. I'm really not a huge fan of Himeji in general, because I don't think it provides enough economic benefit for the resources it costs. So, like I said, an alternative is to just grab this rich land here. I won't be able to use it for a while because I already have one for the iron, but maybe I can use it for selective breeding. So, although I don't really like Himeji too much, I can finish it pretty easily in 2 turns. Next turn I just upgrade, can build a step, or wait until next turn, have 9 resources total, or 10 resources total over the 2 turns. Pascaltopia again doesn't seed, wants to become a little bit stronger. Grabs the other rich land. M34N takes cannons. He really can't go for it right now. He doesn't have any upgrade resource production at all, really. So I think that this is going to start to become like a little bit of a difficult game for him. There is this early Republic that he can try and revolt into, though. Yeah. Let's see. Anyways, I'm looking at his turn, and it would have been really nice if he was able to develop these cannons this turn, so he could revolt next turn, but he just didn't have enough civil actions to do so, unfortunately. And then builds another library. So even if he did have the ability to go for cannons next turn, he can't build any because he has no population. He can go for Republic now since he has 11 science. So it's nice to note here. I do finally seed. It is border conflict. I could have obviously gotten stronger, but I decided that I just wasn't going to do so. Could have upgraded my swordsman and stuff, but I really wanted to draw multiple cards per turn. And I just didn't think that it would be worth it to upgrade this to 11, only being able to draw 1 card. I already know that I do have a developed in here, so I still want to try and win that as well. So I can either draw more H2 cards or draw a tactic. Those are things I'm kind of looking for here. Plus, I might not want these to be swordsmen anyways. I might get a different kind of tactic. So just kind of trying to keep myself flexible, although it is a boost to Pascaltopia, and I just figured that it was too easy for him to get stronger, so I didn't really want to get into an arms race where I was inefficiently using my military action. Then I take the Rev idea, because I really do need more science. Pascaltopia goes for Ocean Liner. It is kind of a good way to increase your production. It is very early, but it is very expensive at this time. He already finished irrigation, so it's not likely that he'll need a lot of population for a long time, but this is like a very good endgame kind of play. It's possible that maybe you want to just go for coal right away here, just because it's pretty early. Still has a rich line to go for it. So I'm not 100% sure if Ocean Liner is the right way to go, but it certainly will pay off a lot since I'll have 10 resources, takes Engineering Genius as well. So Ocean Liner only costing 6. Pretty early, definitely can do very, very well here for the whole game. Alright, and 34 goes for Republic, builds a third library. I believe you want immigration earlier, right? Nope. Not exactly sure where that free. Oh, it was the border conflict. He just moved a lab into the library, so that was kind of beneficial for him. It takes the coal railroad. Railroad is definitely a little bit on the slow side to go for. I don't think that you should do it until after coal has been developed, and don't think coal can be really developed for a very long time. M34N is pretty much put himself in a position where he's going to be very, very weak for a very long time. Doesn't have free population, doesn't have enough science to go into a H2 tech, so I'm not like a huge fan of his position at all right now. Also, it doesn't have a lot of military action, so so he can't really defend very well if there's even just a little bit of pressure put on. Anyways, I seed Crime Wave. I think there's a good chance that in the next deck I'll be one of the stronger ones. Again, I am not now, but I definitely have easy ways to get stronger, especially with Himeji. So, and I kind of want to just push that Raiders out of the way since I wasn't going to be able to get myself out of being the 2 weakest here. Trying to play a little bit more on the greedy side of actively seeding a little bit more. I've been in a lot of games where where I come up just a little bit short on culture, and I'm just trying to play a different style with the event deck lately. Especially in a game that doesn't matter as much, I think that it's nice to be a little bit experimental with the way that I play. And then I also take the Conmon selective breeding, play out the revolution idea, free up hand space and stuff. I can go for Conmon directly next turn, or I can just revolt. Won't have any corruption. So this is pretty nice here. Pascaltopia goes for war over tech here. This is extremely safe war. He doesn't need to get any stronger at all. M34N has 5 resources and not enough science to go for anything here. Maybe like scientific breakthrough comes through and he can get out of cannon, but it's not really likely that. I don't think it's possible for Pascaltopia to lose this war in any way at all. Finishes off Ocean Liner and just grab the reserves. Also grabs Darwin, which I think makes sense. Going Darwin with Brennan Circus, eventually looking at Pierre, I think is a really, really great line. M34 takes the strategy. He's really, really lacking in science, so he does have a lot of really expensive science cards here. But yeah, he's just kind of burning actions, not really able to do much, set himself in a position where he doesn't really have much to do. Really isn't really able to do productive things because of the way his science and resources are set up. So I really think that these libraries, ultra greedy, it does provide him culture, but it's just the economic portion of them is just, it's not doing enough for him. Next turn, he's pretty much in the same position as well. He can basically only build strategy and like one and uses 3 resources. So he can't finish railroad. He can have strat. So he can get only very marginally stronger again. I do seed Vast here. I have a lot of colonization cards. I'm also trying to push this barbarians, knowing that M34N has some real struggles here. I think that there's I did want to get these strength events out while I'm still one of the strongest, and I do think that it is a good idea to actually seed colonies when I have this many military actions, this many cards as well. Especially with like one of these being developed territory as well. I do think that I do go for the regular, the non-revolution with the column 1 here, especially with the developed territory. I can easily go into selective breeding next turn if I want to. I really, really, really want to pick up Harvard here. It's a really good way to boost my science production, and although usually I'm a big fan of revolutions, I think that Harvard is just too good of a card for me in general here. I don't have methods. I don't have a way of getting into methods very easily. So I think this is a really good way of just using my science, or getting more science. Then I take the reserves and the urban growth. I could take block, because I have Joan, I have theater, or I have temples, but I just don't think that block really does enough in the end game. So unfortunately, I still haven't picked up a tactic or anything. It's been a lot of draws where I've drawn maximum, so it hasn't really paid off. But I have drawn a lot of colonization cards, so I'm really thinking that I'm going to win the ones that are coming. And then I do build the extra swordsman because I do plan on actually winning the colonies here. Pascaltopia takes 4 science, and then just declares war again. Again, he doesn't really need to get any stronger. M34N is pretty limited in the amount of strength he goes for, so he actually only gets 1 stronger, and then just goes for a coal here. Might be worth noting that he could have not gone for Darwin earlier to really kind of go for this coal play with Watt, but I still really like Pascaltopia's decisions, knowing that in the long run he wants to have his buildings in labs or libraries. All right, M34 iron seeds, flips develops. I think he's probably hoping that Pascaltopia will win it and get stronger, or he can win it for cheaply enough that this 3 science will be very relevant for him. But of course, I do win it, so I just send a warrior and 2 cards. I think, in retrospect, I should have sent the whole swordsman and kept a card, and kept this 1 card here, knowing that I have Vast pretty close as well. It's only 1 resource. If Vast is on the very, very top, maybe I want the extra colonization. But with the end of the age, I was thinking that I do want to save the 1 resources as well. This card's going to go away, so it's really kind of a tough call, which is correct. But I'm still perfectly happy with going for this way. Anyways, I'm at 34 and then goes for Nobel. Pretty much the only ways he can get stronger here. There was, yeah, not too much he can do here. And yep. Then just take some more cards. So really kind of just using a lot of stuff options, doing not a lot of anything here. Yeah, so yeah, I'm in 34 and I'm kind of struggling in this regard. Does have a very marginal culture lead, but I just don't think that his production is going to do very well here. Anyways, I see the wealthy territory. Again, I see myself as a player with more military actions than the other players. I can't see terrorism. And again, like I said, I'm trying to get a little bit more in terms of just culture from my seating. So I go for Newton. I decide to switch because this is the last turn. Newton, I can go for journalisms or methods. Probably methods in general. I can't really do that right away. So but I do get to use, I can use Newton's benefits if I want to. But anyways, I can't use him right away with methods or journalisms, but I will get more science with Harvard, hopefully going into one of these next turn. Yeah. Finish Harvard, grab the wave. I was thinking about if I should grab method here, but I don't think either of these players will grab method. I just don't think that they can really afford to take it, or they can afford to take it, but it's just completely unnecessary. It would suck to not use Newton very well, but I think that this method will definitely come to me. All right, Pascaltopia takes 3 more science, so some pretty nice wars there, I think. Probably doesn't have a tactic though, and Reign of Terror flips from a long, long, long time ago. Take some cards, so his production is very, very solid here. Science is a little bit lacking, but resources, population, everything that's covered. No cultural production yet, but I think I think Pascaltopia is definitely in a very nice spot overall. The only thing he really needs now is military theory for more military actions, and he can kind of go in whatever direction he wants to. M34N finishes Railroad, grabs fast food chains. His hand is so full that he can't really do much else besides that. But this is kind of the problem when you just completely rely on your civil actions for economy. If you pick up the wrong cards, you can really get screwed. So, anyways, he's finally strong enough. His production's really bad though. Yeah, that's it. And then just doesn't really have enough science to go for all of this, but just has all these techs in hand and stuff. At the very least, he hasn't wasted any science on hasn't quote unquote wasted any science on any military technologies. So he's still very, very flexible in which direction he wants to go to. I just offer this because I can't really seed any of the events that I have. I really figured that he wouldn't accept this because it's super easy for me to get a lot of science, but decide just it's a free roll. Grab Newton, or sorry, grab Einstein, even though I have Newton already. I think Newton or Einstein is definitely a really, really, really strong leader here. Gonna have a lot of science, so I think that just building up a little bit, switching into Einstein later, could be very, very nice. The only other leader that I would really want is Gates, and I don't really feel like waiting for him too much. I take the scientific method. I really thought about these computers as well, but the big thing about why I went for this route is because just giving me more civil actions, being able to make these methods go up for cheaper with these urban growths here, was a pretty big swing for me. Since I'm already spending 2 actions on Einstein, I didn't really want to spend 3 on computers as well. So I do this really cheaply, and I take the patriotism wall. So these methods really didn't cost me too much with the urban growth. And then I don't switch yet. I'm thinking that maybe it's possible that I want some more civil actions. So I decided just to hold Einstein in hand first. Impact competition would be nice for, it's kind of nice to have, but I believe that the person who's getting Pierre will be having a really good competition here. Balance, also pretty decent for me compared to the others. As soon as I finish selective breeding, I'll have pretty good production across the board. Pascaltopia instead goes for computers, goes for architecture, and builds up his science quite a bit. Kind of preparing for Gates here. Doesn't really need to switch to Marie or anything. Marie and Darwin provide the same amount of science, so or same amount of culture. So I kind of like the just keeping Darwin and not going for Marie. Also important to note that Nobel's in the game, so a high science strategy is highly recommended because there can be possible Nobel prizes, and just getting extra points going in this route seems like a good idea. M34N flips fast. I was kind of hoping to win this, but I really couldn't bid too much because my big problem was that I didn't have any tactics. So I didn't really know what to go build afterwards. Yeah, also if I bid more than just 1 unit, I wouldn't be able to have a second population afterwards. I really could have thought about bidding a little bit more, but I just wasn't sure what kind of game that would lead to if I wouldn't be able to defend against M34N afterwards. Especially since he goes for the strategy here. I wouldn't want to have to just keep sacking units, not having enough resources to actually develop throughout the rest of my board. So pretty nice pickup for Pascaltopia, I guess. I'm not particularly sure if he really needed Vast because he already has Ocean Liner, but winning it for only 1 unit seems totally worth it. Again, since M34N used so many actions to take cards, he has to float all of these right here because it's just he just hasn't been able. He just isn't able to take anything else. So yeah, yeah, I don't really know what to say here. As a seed impacted balance, like I said, I thought it'd be pretty good. Unfortunately, Iconoclasm hits, so no Nobel Prizes in this game. I'm actually losing an action by holding Einstein now, but it's still okay since I have a leader in hand. Still beneficial because the other players don't, although Pierre did come out and Pascaltopia is a really easy transition. So over noon, selective breeding, upgrade, take the military theory, and yep. It's important to note that I did pass the United Nations, and fast food chains is taken as well. So the only other wonder here is that I can possibly grab is internet. So I definitely can be competing with the internet for Pascaltopia. The only problem is that my internet would be really, 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 really small. It would only be worth 9 right now for me. So Einstein is not the best internet leader unless you have libraries. Pascaltopia Seeds flips the crime wave that I put in a long time ago. I'm perfectly fine with this since Pascaltopia and I are probably the ones who are winning this particular game. Goes for Pierre, of course, grabs Air Force and builds a tank. And 34N Seeds and flips Ravagers of Time. Has to destroy a library. Goes for journalism. I don't know about this in general. Yeah, I mean, he kind of has to do it to get cards out of his hand. And he wants to use the efficient upgrade as well. Can't go for multimedia this turn. I think it's super awkward the way that he's played so far. But maybe he can grab Churchill here, or in the future, at least he'll have science to develop his military techs and stuff. So he might be able to start keeping up in terms of military soon, just because of the extra science from Churchill soon. But this huge investment into actually building journalism, not having a lot of population, means that he's going to be relegated to be very, very weak throughout the game. Here I see it, impact of progress. It's a little bit early to do so, but first we'll deal with this territory. I bid a little bit more on this one, but Pascaltopia still wins it. Unfortunately, never really drew any more cards after that was H2 set, so it's a little bit coming down to the luck of it. Again, I didn't really have the ability to rebuild into a tactic. Didn't have a lot of population, so couldn't really bid that much going for it. So it's a little bit early to go for the impact of progress, but I did figure that I have a lot of science. Pascaltopia has some techs already developed, so he might not overlap them. I still have a whole round in which I can still develop techs if I need to. So I think that seems a little bit early, but I think that the impacts of progress will still be really big for me. I can't go for competition. Pascaltopia is Pierre, has a lot more points than I do, so yeah. Anyways, I think that this is extremely expensive, so I'm pretty happy that Pascaltopia wins, actually, in this case. He does have a lot of population from the vast territory earlier, so these two together, just really, really, really awesome for him to go for. But yeah, this really kind of takes away some of the pressure because he doesn't have a lot of military actions. Unfortunately, military theory is also on the board. I can't really deny that since I have my own. So yeah, it's like a little bit of pressure off, but it can definitely be rebuilt pretty soon. Anyways, I do grab the Air Force and multimedia, and I actually developed multimedia here, thinking that Pascaltopia doesn't have a ton of like strength potential offensively this turn, so I'm hoping to be a little bit greedy, go for multimedias, but that might be a little bit too greedy. I think it's probably better just to develop these cannons, knowing that I'm very likely going to go for these entrenchments here. If something like freedom movement came up, then I would want to put something into cannons here. I was thinking that if freedom movement came up, I'd want to move a lab into a library, but that's just, I think that's probably just a little bit too greedy. I think developing the cannons is probably just a better idea. In fact, architecture is okay. Um, it's a little bit under, it's a little bit bad for me right now, but it can be okay depending on this game progresses. Pascaltopia seeds and flips impact of strength. So this was not seeded by me or Pascaltopia. We talked about it a little bit in the game. I'm the one who seeded the colonies, and M34NN was the one who seeded strength. So this kind of worked out really well for him, and kind of well for me as well. I really wasn't expecting this point count, but I really can't imagine what M34NN was thinking. Uh, Gambling on this strength so early. Him being just having no science, no military text develops, was just a very ambitious play for strength here. I definitely would have gone stronger if I had more accessible military techs initially. But because I never drew a tactic from age 2, I stayed very weak for a long time. Anyways, Pascaltopia grabs internet here. It's the last wonder. Really big contention for it. So it's very possible that I should have denied the internet. The only problem was that it would have cost 5 civil actions for me. I only have 6 total, so I found it really hard to justify taking internet and not just taking things like Air Force, playing my military theory, all sorts of things from last term. Especially since the only way that I can make internet work is with multimedias. I needed to take that off the road as well, so didn't really think that I could afford taking a wonder for so many actions and have it not actually be that worth that much. So Pascaltopia, definitely in a good position to grab the internet here, um, and definitely looking very good for the because he could either go military, he could either go for military, he can either go for culture. He has Pierre. Already generating a good decent amount as well. So, culture is looking actually pretty close throughout. Since I think it'll be difficult for M34NN to actually finish fast food chains, I don't think that you can really count this into his points. But Pascaltopia could definitely go for an internet that's worth 12 plus 9 right now, so it's already worth 21. And then just takes military theory, has the SARS, so gets quite a bit stronger than I thought he was going to. Tactic is great for him having tanks, and with patriotism, Air Force, he's definitely looking threatening on this coming turn. So it was a little bit too ambitious to play this multimedia out. Really should have developed the cannons, but I played a little bit greedy. I was hoping that his tactic really wouldn't work out too well. I knew that he can go for military theory and attack and Air Force that easily, so I wasn't thinking that he could. I was thinking that the best tech that he could really have would be like shock troops or anything. That's just not too likely, but I probably should have considered SARS a little bit more, factoring that into his strength potential. But yeah, anyways, I just didn't think that he would get this much stronger, this much more threatening, and I kind of was just overly ambitious with this whole idea. Anyways, M34NN flips impact balance, so it's a little bit better for me. He goes for rifleman, grabs military buildup, grabs reserves, pretty much doing all he can. But he's in such a weak position here. Doesn't have a lot of population. can't really have a lot of good techs because he only has the ability to either develop one of cavalrymen or cannons. So his strength potential is very, very low, even though he has 10, 14, 24 resources. It just takes so much for him to get strong. Offer a peace treaty at M34NN. I thought he would accept it. I thought he would kind of realize that his only chance is for Pascaltopia to go against me anyways. So I thought that maybe he just wants extra culture, but yeah, he definitely can't aggress me, so. But it is worth one extra point for me, so I can see why he would not do so. Anyways, I rebalanced my army a little bit, grab the engineering and satellites for that impact of progress that's in the deck. Even if Pascaltopia seeds and MM34NN seeds, still safe for to not develop these blue techs this turn. I also thought about disbanding instead of actually destroying the swordsman, but I kind of figured that it's difficult for me to defend anyways. The extra swordsman doesn't really do that much, so I do need them in cannons. I can't defend for the most, but I can definitely defend higher than M34, even though I only have 14 resources. Should also note that I have Harvard, and it's possible that I can get a little bit more here from reserves, but it doesn't really change too much. I think the biggest strength increase that I can get is with satellites and modern infantry, and then sack and modern infantry for an extra 8. So that would be, I'm not exactly sure. Don't really want to math it right now, but I could get 3 stronger, 8 stronger from the sack. So that's 11 plus at least 6 more from upgrading, so 14 plus 4 more on the tactic, 18. So I'm definitely in the 50 plus range at least to defend. And I think that makes it high enough that Pascaltopia would not be incentivized to war me, especially since MM34NN strength potential is much, much, much lower than 50. The thing about this is that MM34N and I have much more similar culture counts. Pascaltopia is the one who's technically playing from behind, even though he still has a wonder to finish. He probably wants a more significant war in order to kind of guarantee a top place here. Because if I defend well enough, and he doesn't beat me by enough, then MM34N could easily just win somehow, finishing fast food chains, just having and kind of running away on the culture a little bit. Kind of also depends on what impacts and aggressions that Pascaltopia has, but I do think that this is a position where I feel like I'm a lot less appealing of a target than MM34NN. Anyways, unfortunately, I never really drew any good impacts here. So besides the impact of progress, I haven't seeded anything at all, which is really, really unfortunate. I seeded impact of balance, but aside from that, no impact. Impact of population is bad. Impact of architecture is bad. Impact of competition is bad. I can't really make any of these work too well since Pascaltopia is better than me across the board. So yeah. So Pascaltopia does cover M34N, like kind of figured. Builds an Air Force, tank, and another swordsman, just for a little bit extra strength here. So, yep. 50 is all I can muster. I believe that I could defend somewhere in that range, so yeah, it's pretty much, yeah, it. I guess I had other defenses with Revolutionary Idea, going with Modern Infantry and Air Force, something along the lines. I think I had a lot of, I think it was really difficult from Pascaltopia to decide what my max strength was, especially with Harvard in the mix. Alright, and then 34NN. Tries to defend as well as he can. Takes and denies modern infantry. I don't even know why. I think that this is a mistake. Probably should just, I don't know, grab anything else. There's no reason that I need to get any stronger anymore. He can't aggress me. I can't really defend well against Pascaltopia if I... it doesn't seem that worth it to try and defend against Pascaltopia because I would lose so much in opportunity cost. So, yep. Especially because I know that Pascaltopia probably can't, or sorry, I know that MM34NN probably can't defend any aggression either. So, and I know that Pascaltopia doesn't need the resources as well. So it doesn't really seem like a big deal in order to defend this from Pascaltopia. Anyways, he does have the shock troops, so it does go up to 37, but that's a pretty big loss here. Um, with the Himeji Castle, I do think it's pretty easy to defend against M34N. I have a lot of cards, and I can still sack. So even though I don't have any H3 defense cards, I think there's no real benefit to get stronger here. I think I even can actually defend here if I want to, because I sack for 6, have 6 more cards to throw away. So yeah, I can even defend even without any defense cards here. Yeah, and then I just pick up my Impact of Progress, going for a really big one. Unfortunately, I would have loved to take these reserves, but I need the Revolutionary Idea as well to go for an extra tech. So it's possible that I could have not increased population and not built a temple this turn, grabbing the reserves. I would be in corruption, but if I math this out a little bit better, going for the reserves would have allowed me to build the temple and 2 multimedias in the next turn, which would be a lot better than what I do eventually do. So I think that I probably did something incorrect this turn. I think I needed to work in getting reserves in. Yeah, I needed to at least do one of these actions though because I was unhappy. So I'm not exactly sure how I could have done this. I could have probably not developed satellites, but that could be pretty risky since I can actually defend against M34NN now. Yeah, just things to consider. Thinking that I want to build an extra multimedia. Something important to note is that Pascaltopia and I are very equal in culture right now, but I would really need to be able to build 2 multimedias in order to contest impact of culture if he goes for this democracy this turn. So yeah, anyways. If you look at this, impact of architecture is the only impact that I can think about going for. Right now I have 2, 4, 7. Pascaltopia has 8. So 3, 6, 7, sorry, 8, 9, 10. So right now it's equal. If I include seeding points, so I can get slightly ahead if this comes out well. Anyways, Pascaltopia takes 18 culture, seeds, list impacts of industry. Slight lead for him, goes for democracy, upgrades his lab, builds an arena using his urban growth, and finishes a pretty big internet for 27 here. Yeah, so his impact of culture, if possible, is at plus 13, and I really would have needed 2 multimedias in order to contest that. So by not getting these reserves from earlier, I put myself in a position where I don't even threaten it. Anyways, M34 kind of just does stuff. I think he's pretty much completely out of this game at this point. He just takes some cards. So I do seed impact architecture here. Like I said, I can think about contesting a little bit. He has 9 plus 4, so 13 total. Right now I'm thinking that I can build a multimedia and a scientific method, which would be 5 more on top of my 7. So this would be 12 points. So impact of architecture is worth 1 here extra just with seeding points. And unfortunately, I did know that these two were seeded by M34NN, so I didn't think anything would be too bad in terms of events since he was going to be the weakest. He knew that he was probably going to be the weakest, but he also did seed Impact of Strength, so I don't know. He could be thinking anything. And then I seed, and unfortunately I flipped National Pride. So seeding actually cost me 4 points here instead of the +1 that I was hoping for. And then I just play out my turn. I know that Impact of Industry is gone already. If I had Harmony, I would be pretty low already. So I just try to go for the impacts that I do know about. I can't really go for Strength. Strength has already been played. Don't need competition. Yeah, so I could have also thought about playing around Happiness a little bit. Oh no, I couldn't because I can't build another temple, so never mind. So I just maximize the points that I know about. Kind of just have to hope that I have enough. It's pretty close going into this. I'm only 6 points behind Pascaltopia. I know Impact of Progress is huge, but it's the only impact I have. And I think I remember Pascaltopia that he definitely had 2 impacts in here. Or this could be correct, and it could be all 3. So first one's Architecture. I guess it was actually worth 2 points instead of 1, so it was worth 2 points. So seeding it cost me 3 because I flipped National Pride. Back to Variety should be good for me. So getting a little bit closer here. Back to Culture. So unfortunately, this is one of the really bad case scenarios. Like I said, if I had taken the reserves at some point, if I had somehow worked that in, maybe that this wouldn't be a factor, because Pascaltopia could have seen that that I could threaten beating him in Culture. And then Impact of Progress. So I do get very, 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 very close. So I lose out just a little bit here. Yeah, I just lose out a little bit, and it was a very, very close game, and definitely enjoyed playing it. It's pretty tense, and definitely well played by Pascaltopia to take advantage of M34NN's very obvious, just going to be pretty weak kind of game. And I was able, the only reason I was able to, I think, catch up so much in a lot of regards is because I knew that I felt like I could defend. So Himeji actually, even though I think it's not the best wonder, I think it really, really did a lot this game. But this is also just because I didn't have a lot of population. I didn't have a lot of civil actions compared to my opponents. I only just got civil service out very late, so both my opponents were on Republic with Code of Laws, so I think them having extra civil actions, then I wasn't really able to take advantage of my extra military actions. I didn't draw good tactics. I didn't draw colonization cards very well, so I think that all those advantages that I had, that I thought I was going to play towards, didn't really pan out as well as I wanted them to. So unfortunately, I think I was in not like as good a position as I thought I was going to be throughout the game. And I think those I think that's lack of civil actions just kind of cost me a little bit. Especially with Pascaltopia having so much population. Me giving him this vast, giving him this wealthy, probably did not put myself in a good position. I really, really thought that I was going to win more territories. Really thought that with both my opponents only being on like 2 or 3 military actions, that I would have a huge advantage in that regard. But I ended up playing a higher variant strategy that didn't really work out too well here. Anyways, like I said, MM34NN is the only one who actually really matters in this. He is one of the 2 people that's going to be relegated. Both Pascaltopia and I are pretty much set in either the 2nd through 4th position in our group. And it doesn't really matter which way we finish, but I would have really liked to have won this game. Anyways, I hope you enjoy watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.